Hello and welcome to the TES Secondary Maths Resource of the Week number 98 with me, Craig Barton. Now, over the last few years, I have consistently banged on about my belief that trying to force the real world into maths lessons can lead to a bit of a disaster because many of the topics that we cover at school level maths simply aren't that applicable to real world things. And if you try and con students into thinking that they are, they can see right through it, and it often leads to quite a bit of disengagement. However, there are certain things from the real world that are very, very suitable to the maths classroom, to analysis in the maths classroom, I should say. And there are certain issues that are so important that it's important that kids are exposed to them and get a chance to analyse and discuss them and critique the coverage and so on. And statistics is an area that lends itself particularly well to this. And obviously, one of the biggest stories over the last few months has been the tragic circumstances of the migrant crisis that has been sweeping across the whole of Europe, really. And it's something that many of my students simply weren't aware of. They were aware something was going on, but if you press them a little bit, they didn't know many details. So there's been a couple of resources on TES that have sprung up in kind of response to this, and this is probably the pick of the bunch. Maths and the Migrant Crisis by Peter Mattock. Now, what I like about this is it doesn't try to get too political or too preachy or anything like that. It simply presents the facts in the way that they've been presented in both the news and the TV coverage, and then asks students to analyse them and reach conclusions and do calculations with them. And the kind of resource stops there, but it opens the door for lots of potential for you to take it wherever you like. So let's have a look at it. It consists of 3 worksheets, one on bar charts, one on pie charts, and one on proportion. So let's have a look at each of those in turn. Let's start with the bar charts one. So you get here, the bar chart shows the asylum applications submitted in selected European countries in 2014 and 2015. And you get the source that this is from the BBC. And the vast majority of these diagrams are from the BBC. And that will be presented on the BBC website. And then with an article surrounding it. But what Peter's done here is he's then asked students questions using their Key Stage 3 or GCSE skills to do. So which countries are taking more migrants, which has reduced it by the greatest amount, and so on. And then I love these kind of questions. Justify your answer, critique. And I've spent loads of time recently looking at all the new GCSE sample assessment materials, and this use of justify, explain, criticise, is kind of prevalent throughout them all. So getting students exposure to this now is going to be absolutely massively beneficial to them. Again, more questions here. Why is Germany only third despite it being first? So getting students to think more around the statistics and how that graph differs to this graph and so on. And it continues. It's a really nice structured way of analysing different bar charts. And bar charts, God, they can be a bit of a dull topic. So really, really nice here. If we have a look at the pie chart one, we get something similar here. So pie charts from the BBC, where are the migrants coming from? And again, students are given the opportunity to analyse these pie charts through some really nice structured questions and then create their own pie chart. And finally, we have a proportion. So again, we're presented with a graph that you'll have seen from the previous one, but this time we get different questions asked about it. And this one's slightly more difficult. And then we get this one here, asylum applications approved in 2014, and more questions about that. So how can this resource be used in the classroom? Well, as just a data analysis lesson, it pretty much runs itself. Give the students the 3 worksheets, get them to run through it, get them to write their answers in the book and either mark it together as a whole class or mark it as a homework or a piece of assessment. But again, I think there's a bit more potential for this since it's such an important topic. And without getting too preachy about things, I think it's very important that students are aware of the wider world, and I know many of my kids simply aren't. So one thing I'm going to do with my Year 8 class in the next couple of weeks is they're going to get this, and I'm going to split the class into 3. And one group's going to get the bar chart worksheet, one's going to get the pie chart worksheet, and one's going to get the proportion worksheet. And they're going to work independently or in pairs on filling out the worksheet, and then get together as a group. And I want them to decide what they think the most important thing that they've discovered from it, the most startling statistic or the most interesting calculation that they've done. And then just for the end of the lesson, for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, a spokesperson from each group's just going to share that with the rest of the class. And I think that's important. It just gets them to reflect upon the work they've done and put it in a more kind of real world context. But as I say, even if you just use it for analysing slightly more interesting and pertinent statistics than we normally get, then this is an incredibly worthwhile resource. So there it is, Maths and the Migrant Crisis by Peter Mattock. And I shall be back with a fresh resource of the week next week. Take care and bye for now.